know what I found was, one, people don't want me there. Right? People didn't wake up that day and were like, who I hope knocks on my door today.
A pest control guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what people wake up saying. So that doesn't happen. And so it's fairly intrusive, right? It's kind of an interruption of their day and stuff like that. And even though we did really, really well, like it was still just not my favorite thing because I wasn't asked to be there, right? And I hated that aspect of it. So one day, like I was at a McDonald's because it was the only place with air conditioning and Wi-Fi and like stuff like that. And it was just so hot in Indianapolis. It was so humid that day. It was just crazy. And so I was like, you know what? I hate this. I hate interrupting people. I hate that they don't want me to be there. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw up an ad on Craigslist. So I did that. Ad on Craigslist, talked about all the things in pest control, and people called.
Nice.
They actually
That's
called.
a lot of the box, right?
Right.
You're not just doing the door knocking.
And I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, this is so beneficial that they're actually calling me. They had all the information they needed to be able to make a sale, and it was great. And like some of my colleagues were like, well, how'd you make a sale in this part of Indianapolis? We were located way down here, And it was my little secret, my little ace up the sleeve. So years later, I go to a conference. I'm working for a company that sells products online. I go to this conference and they talk about SEO and they talk about inbound marketing and how people can find you in Google and then they will reach out to you. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want. I want people reaching out to me rather than me having to knock on their door and go to them. And from then on, it was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life is digital marketing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I also love your other business that you do. So you have to tell a little bit about your other business, and then we'll jump into marketing, and then we'll answer questions. Amanda, welcome. That's awesome about your story. I think about the band. Zach, what's up, dudes? How's it going, Zach? Welcome.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. So yes, I am a part owner of a company called Kaiback Outfitters, and it's kind of an umbrella company that owns like several others. And some of it is we do like shoes for Latter-day Saint missionaries. Some of it is we do like travel shower sandals. Some are like hiking sandals, like kind of comparable to what's that one? Chacos. There we go.
But better.
But better. Easily better. Much more competitively priced. We'll say that. Yeah. And so we have, I think, a 6,000 or 7,000 square foot warehouse in Sugar City. That some of my business partners are at every day, and we're shipping products, all over the world, kind of from there. And we're one of the #1 distributors of shower sandals on Amazon. So kind of a random thing.
That's awesome.
that is part of kind of what I own, and then also my wife and I, we've done like a handful of like clothing boutiques and stuff like that we sell products online there too. So handful of different things.
Guys.
Yeah.
Serial entrepreneurs, right? For sure. All right, so I'd say if listening to your background, your niche is thinking outside of the box, right? You tend to find what works and run with it. If it's not working, you leave it and go somewhere else.
Right.
So you texted me some of the different ideas that you had about some simple things that people can do, because obviously they can hire a professional at any time. They can hire you. But what are some things that we can do as the non-techie in-finger insurance guy that will help boost our ratings or boost it when people are looking for us on Google? Brandon, welcome. Been looking forward to Ryan. Glad to have you, Brandon.
Good to see you there, Brandon.
If you have questions while we're going, again, yell at us and we'll try to answer them. But let's go ahead and get started. If you don't have any further things you want to hit, we'll talk about the 7, and we have to think of a half point before the end of our time here. So.
I actually have it like super quick, so that might be a little anticlimactic as far as that's concerned. But yeah, like just like Mike said, like kind of thinking outside the box has been kind of something that I really pride myself on. And in fact, like, our logo over here, it's the fox, it's clever. And that was kind of the whole concept of our agency, is trying to be clever, finding unique opportunities for people to be able to win, because I think there's this big misconception that in order to win at marketing, you have to have enormous amounts of capital. You have to just be able to do crazy amounts of volume of advertising and stuff like that. And while that is always going to be helpful, that's not necessarily what it takes to win. So this list that I've kind of compiled are kind of some suggestions to help business owners and entrepreneurs and people who are over the marketing of their business be found in Google primarily. We do a lot of Facebook ads, we do video work, we do pay-per-click advertising, but I'd say Google is kind of our forte.
Is Google still king? Do you know what the statistics are, or how many people are looking on Yahoo versus
Oh, it's definitely
Facebook?
Bing is the top.
I hope not. I do not like Bing. Sorry if anybody works for Bing, but I'm not a Bing fan.
No, it's huge. It is really, really big. That Google's there. I mean, Bing is up there. I mean, not up there, but like the second. And by second, it's like we have like a gold, silver, and bronze
What
medal.
percent of the market is Google? Is it 80%?
Oh, I'd say at least 80%, if not like into the 90s.
Okay.
But then you do have Bing, you have Yahoo, you have DuckDuckGo, you have like all sorts of these different kind of things, and a lot of them follow like fairly similar algorithms. Like I feel like a lot of them are like, oh, Google implemented this feature into their algorithm, we should probably do that too.
Yeah.
So
Copycat.
Exactly. So if you're doing things to do well in Google, chances are you'll do well kind of in those other platforms as well.
Cool.
Like that's kind of generally how it works there. So
sorry, I sidetracked you.
Oh, you're good, man. I have them written down. Sorry, I'm not as cool as some of these people have them like memorized. But the number one thing that you can do if you're especially like a local business, right? If you're a company that you have a location, or you're kind of like a service area based industry, like a plumber or a pest control company or something like that, like the best thing that you can probably do is create or claim your Google My Business listing. The Google My Business listing is a free service that's provided by Google that allows you to be able to provide like information for your potential customers, like your business name, your address, your hours of operation. You can also add things like photos of your company or your building. You can talk about what services you offer. You can provide a link to your website. There's so many things that are at your disposal right there using Google My Business, and it's free and it's huge. It's way, way important.
And it's been so long ago since I've done it. Don't you just get on there and they mail you a card or something that has the code, and then you type it in? Is that the idea?
So you go to, I think it's business.google.com. If not, I mean, literally go to Google and Google My Business. You'll find it, right? It's going to be one of those top links there. So go there, and then you can submit that information. Generally, you need like an address, name, phone number, and then you can generally get started, right? And what Google will do is they'll send you some kind of a verification postcard. And it comes in the mail. It totally looks like a piece of junk mail. Don't throw it away, so help me. They'll send you a little code, and what Google's just trying to verify is the fact that you are at that location and you can receive mail there. So that's what Google is trying to do kind of through that verification process.
Try to make it slightly less spam out there on Google.
Yeah,
I guess,
exactly.
If you're getting at least in the mail.
So I can't like say I have a random satellite office in Atlanta, Georgia, unless of course I can receive mail there, which a lot of people do things like that. But this is important because like obviously you can provide all that information for all the users. That's great. But it's also important because one of the number one factors as far as like where you rank in what's called the Google Local Pack. And what the Local Pack is, like when you search for like restaurants, and there's that section of Google that pops up and it has like the address for the restaurant, it has like all that information there. That's the map section is what that section is called. And you can't get there without a Google listing. That's not a thing. You need to have that Google listing in order to be able to be there. But also, like, it's important because Google is showing people who are searching closer to your location. They really don't think that users look for an insurance agency or a marketing company or an attorney any differently than they look at for like a restaurant. If you Google restaurants or something like that, it's going to show you some of the ones that are really close. They're like, oh, you're hungry? Oh, well, perfect. We got Diablo's right across the hall. Right. That's going to be the number one search result because it's close, right? And so it's important to have that Google listing because you're going to be found by people who are searching near you. And that's one of the number one kind of ranking factors is the proximity to where that Google listing is located.
So percentage-wise, because I like thinking in percentages, is that a bigger deal than, say, your rating? And before you answer, welcome, Spencer. Hey, Scott says the Google My Business app is a must-have. Maybe you'll talk about that, Ryan. Molly agreed, keeps you in the instant know on reviews. Got to monitor those babies.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for commenting.
Yeah, these are all really, really important factors. Like, so Google My Business, like obviously you can provide information as far as like who you are, your address, your phone number, your website, all that kind of thing. But then also, reviews are kind of a big one, which we'll kind of get to here in not too terribly long. But yeah, that's like, it's how you get found in Google, right? Is having a Google My Business listing. And kind of with that, this half tip that you mentioned.
Here it is.
Yeah, it's
Drum
right
roll.
here at the beginning. The half tip is you have to have the right primary business category. This is particularly important, like if your business could potentially fit in a number of different categories, like whatever one that is most important that you're trying to rank for, that should be your primary business category. So for example, this is really common in the legal industry, that these attorneys that do personal injury work, or kind of helping people after they've been in car accidents or something like that, they will have their primary business category as law firm or lawyer or attorney or something super generic, whereas there actually is a more specific
subcategory that you can.
And that should, if they're a personal injury attorney and that's what they do, like that should be their number one category. And Google's going to give preferential treatment to websites or attorneys that are probably having that more accurate or more specific, there we go, more specific business category selected as their primary category. So that's the half one. Claim your listing. Make sure that you have the right business category selected as your primary business one. You can select other categories. So for example, for mine, like, yeah, we're a marketing agency. We also do web design. We do graphic design. We do, kind of all these other things, but the most important one for us.
Is there a limit to how many you can pick? So you have to pick the main one, and then you can also click others?
I'm trying to think if there's a limit. I've never done that before. And there's actually kind of a big thing for a while is called category dilution. It was kind of the concern is if you had too many, would you be less competitive on some of the most important ones?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been the case. There was a study that was done by Sterling Sky that kind of debunked that said as long as the business category is appropriate for what your business does, then you should be fine.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it pays to kind of look and do your research through what other business categories are available in the case that someone is looking for some kind of off service that you do, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, guys, if you have questions on any of these things as we're going, yell at us in the comments and I'll try to keep an eye on it. But we'll go on to tip 2.
Tip 2, and this one is really related. This one is citations. Now, a citation is like a business listing that's out there on the internet. These are things like Yelp is considered a citation. It's a really, really important one. Apple Maps, Bing Local or Bing Places. I can't remember which one that one's called. But there's a handful of them. That Yellow Pages is another one, right? Like Yellow Pages used to be, phone books and stuff like that, and they still are. But they've really kind of tried to morph into kind of like this internet business directory is essentially what they're trying to become now. And so getting your information out on as many of these listings as possible is pretty darn important. And Yelp in particular is really, really important because if you use Siri to do a lot of your search, which even though I'm an iPhone user, I don't use Siri that much.
Ditto.
Yep. But if you do, Yelp is often the information that's pulled. So if you're looking, find me the top digital marketing agency near me, you need to have your information on Yelp and Apple Maps in order for that to be able to be pulled up. Because Apple's like, no, we don't do Google.
Yeah,
we're too cool for those guys, because they're kind of competitors there in a lot of ways.
Cool. I actually had my parents run a corn maze over on the west side of town, and there was only one Yelp review because I feel like hardly anybody uses it. But this person was coming, and there was just one-star review, and that was it. And so I do think it's important to, like you said, make sure we get all of these things, and hopefully all of these different places, Bing and Google and Yahoo, all of them hopefully have some information on us, because then it will benefit us, with all those.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a place to start, like you can literally Google things like top business citations, or something like that.
Renee's a big fan of Yelp.
And
I see the angry face.
Yelp has its place. I don't know what to say.
But if Apple uses it, I mean, there's a big chunk of, I'm Apple, so if a lot of people are using Apple, I better start paying attention to Yelp, I guess.
Right.
At least somewhat.
Yeah, at least somewhat for sure. Also, I believe Bing, Bing uses Yelp essentially like Google uses Google My Business. Like if you look up and you're looking for a local business in Bing, they'll pull in the reviews and the information from Yelp.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of important to have the information accurate and looking good on Yelp because it is important. You know, I do kind of consider it definitely a secondary level. I mean, that's why we talked about Google My Business. Oh, and then here's all the other things that are kind of like Google My Business but aren't Google My Business. You know. So that's important. Google does take into consideration like how many of these citations you have. If you have like kind of like industry citations, you know, so if there's some kind of an insurance directory or something like that would be valuable to have your information up there because Google will glean that kind of information and will kind of take that into consideration when it comes to where you rank.
So, the one question I had, so with my company, that I get a free or almost free thing with Progressive. Progressive is one of the companies we sell. That they send me this thing that says like how accurate your ratings are across the whole spectrum in Yelp, in Bing, in Yahoo, in Google. Is that important that the accuracy and the reason for me that I feel like it gets hung up a lot is I have a dad that's also insurance and a brother that's also in insurance. So there's lots of infangers that are in insurance. So is it important that that accuracy is up there between all of them? Does it hurt you much?
It is important. So in like 2013 or something like that, when I was first like learning about SEO, like that was huge. It was huge to have them have as many listings as possible, even like on these like weird random sites that no one has ever heard of,
right?
Like brownbook.net, you know, or so, I don't know, all sorts of random things like that. So it was important to have like a quantity of citations, and it was important for the information to be accurate. And Google looked at the name, address, and phone number, what's called NAP in the industry, and they would look at the consistency between them. And it was like a big deal if it was like, oh, I'm in number 217, but this other listing said Suite 217.
Yeah.
Like that was an issue. Like that kind of inconsistency could throw things off, but things have changed.
So it's not as big of a deal anymore.
No, like, so obviously it's important to have them as accurate as possible. And there is kind of an upper echelon, an upper level there of like valuable citations. And then everything after, which is probably like 10, maybe 20, you could argue maybe, and then after that the value of them like falls off like crazy.
Okay.
So it is important to have it up in kind of those top ones, but other than that I wouldn't worry a whole lot about it.
All right, looks like we have a couple questions. So Brandon, how beneficial is it to have a Google ad, and if you do make a Google ad, how do you get the most bang for your buck, most money for your clicks?
So yeah, Google ads are obviously important. They can be a really, really great way to be able to show up. You know, geez, you're not able to do it organically, or you're not able to do it without paying. Well, then yeah, Google ads can be a good way. The best way to get some good bang for your buck as far as Google ads goes is to go after like really specific queries in my mind. Like if you're going after something that's super vague, then it might not be as valuable. You know, for example, you know, kind of going for back to the legal realm, right? Because that's what I used to work in almost exclusively at my last company was attorneys. So if I'm an injury attorney, right, or let's go divorce attorney. There we go. Like if I am a divorce attorney, I want to bid on people who are searching for divorce attorney, not lawyer. Right? Because that's super generic. Are they wanting a bankruptcy attorney? You know, do they have like a trust that they need to get written? Like, what is that? Like, it's so vague. So the best bang for your buck is going to be very, very specific. So for Brandon's example, like truck wraps, right? That is going to be probably back window perforation, right? These like really, really specific searches, that's going to be what's going to be the most advantageous for you to bid on.
So get specific, Brandon. JD, what's up, JD? Just want to vouch for Ryan. He is a good guy. We hired him to do SEO for our business and took us from not being listed at all on the front page of Google to twice on the front page. Way to go, JD. It's made a huge difference. So Ryan knows what he's talking about. Hey, Charity, welcome. Fist bump back at you.
I love you, JD. You're a good guy. Appreciate you saying that. So let's see. So should I go on to the next one here?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. If you guys have more questions digging on that, yell at us, and I'll try to keep an eye on those.
Yep. So the next important one is, I mean, it's all kind of in tandem. They all kind of are pretty related. But the next one, most important one, is reviews. This is huge because let's say we work so hard, we get you ranked #1 in Google, right? In Google My Business, you're the #1 business, and you have, let's say, a 4.0 rating with 2 reviews. Okay, well, that's not terrible necessarily, but the listing below you, or even maybe like 2 below you, has like 56 reviews and an average rating of like 4.9. You're done.
Yeah.
All right.
Especially if it's all on that first page.
Like, I don't know if it matters where you're ranked. I really don't. Amazon has us trained, right, that we search blender or shower sandal, right? We'll say shower sandal for my case. And as you look down, and that first one has like no reviews, you skip it. Like, it's eliminated from contention already. So if like you get found, like, you need to have your reviews looking great, because you can be found but not chosen. And even if you're there, it doesn't matter, right? It does not matter.
So what if you're
unless
first on Google? Makes sense.
So one of my clients, Pick PT, they have a location in Rexburg, and they also have one here in Idaho Falls. They're phenomenal people. If you guys are looking for physical therapy work, I definitely would recommend that you check them out. But like, if you look at their Google reviews in Rexburg, like, they have like 60 plus or something like that, and the nearest competitor has like 15, or something like that. Like, they have really positioned themselves as the obvious choice in that market. The obvious choice. Like, I don't care if they're #1, #3, whatever. If they get found, they're probably going to get chosen. I feel very confident that's going to be the case, and it all comes down to reviews.
Sure. Okay, so I want to dig at you, and maybe you're going to go over it.
Okay.
You get a bad review.
Okay.
Is this on your list to go over?
Well, let's talk about it. It is important.
I've seen it a lot in our group, right? You have the random one review. Renee, and one of her, after her podcast, actually talked about, I think it was in the Be Kind afterthought. I can't remember what she calls after the show, where she has the nice thought after. But somebody that left a bad review. And I know personally, the first time that I had a bad review, I didn't sleep for 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
I was ticked, right? I don't take kindly to people saying something, especially because, and again, I mean, I'm biased, but I didn't think it was true.
Thought
right?
it was pretty unfounded.
Yeah. But tell us about it. I mean, so in my mind, it's also a double-edged sword, because if there's 50 5-star reviews, I'm like, I don't know if I 100% believe it, right? But if it's 49 5-star and 1 3-star, then I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty legit place still. Tell me about it. What do you think about with bad reviews? I know it's important to respond.
Right.
Give us some of your ideas.
Yeah. So there's a few things to say with that. One is consumers are significantly. This is a study that was done by GatherUp, a company called GatherUp, that they actually surveyed people and asked like how they felt about reviews. And one of the things that they said was they do not trust a perfect 5-star rating. It looks fake, right? Like, someone is bound to have had a bad experience with your company at some point, right? I mean, that's just natural. Like, we do our best, but sometimes we fall short, and that's just the nature of the business. But so if you get a review that's like only okay and stuff like that, like, don't sweat it. Like, it's not that big a deal. People are actually more likely to trust it if you have a 4.8, 4.9 star rating than a perfect 5, right? So it's not the end of the world. But let's say like it's completely unfounded, right? There's no basis there. There are a number of situations that you can actually get Google reviews removed. Some of them are like,
so that's actually one of the questions Adam asked up here just a little bit ago, or maybe it went away. Oh, there it is. So Adam Morris, welcome, Adam. I just removed one. An employee of one of our competitors left a 1-star. Annoying. No comment review, and Google removed it for conflict of interest. Awesome.
Yes.
I don't know if I've heard of people actually getting it successfully removed. Adam, way to go. But thoughts on?
I think I actually chatted with Adam about that. But yeah, Google does have some guidelines there, and one of it is conflict of interest. So let's say you have a former employee that leaves, is super mad at you, wants to get back at you, and decides to leave a negative review. That's a conflict of interest. You can get that removed per Google's guidelines. We just kind of have to build the case. Like, if there's some way that we can verify this was an employee and then we can kind of show that to Google. We don't have to like display it publicly, but we can show it to Google, then fantastic, you know?
Cool.
That's a great way to be able to kind of build and show that there's a conflict of interest, just like Adam mentioned there. There's also things like, I mean, hate speech. There's all sorts of things. I have had success removing reviews that were actually 100% valid. Like there are ways to go about it, but it's fairly time consuming, and I don't know if it's necessarily worth it a lot of the times to do so.
Sure.
So my best advice is like respond. And you know, a lot of times people who are looking and considering your business, they're not necessarily concerned about if people have had bad experiences with you, but they are concerned about what you did as a result of that negative experience, right? So someone felt like you left them high and dry. You know, sometimes it can be advantageous just to leave a phone number and say, hey, we really don't know exactly what happened with this situation. Here's our phone number. Please give us a call. Let's have a conversation about this.
Sure.
You know, like showing people that like you're listening and that if they do have a bad experience that you're going to try to do something about it can be just as beneficial as having just perfect ratings, right?
So I actually read, I've been listening, so I don't know if it's Atomic Habits or the one I read before that, but one of them talked about the restaurant industry, and they were looking at paying somebody to remove these negative reviews. And one of the marketing companies that came in, they're like, yeah, we can help you possibly get rid of some of these. But they're like, more importantly, go on there, respond and say, I'm so sorry you had a bad experience. Come in for a free meal on us. Let's talk about it and see what we can do better. And their business skyrocketed. And most of them removed them themselves, most of those customers. So anyway, I think it's important to respond. All right, there's a bunch of questions, so I'll try to hit them. Molly, is it true that a 4.5 star is better than a 5? Is it 4.5, 4? But you were saying 4.8, 4.9 is probably actually that.
Yeah, 4.5 is great. You know, I think anything above like 4.5 to 4.8, 4.9 is fantastic. Like that's super, super important to kind of have it kind of in that range. I really, really like that. Anything below 4.5, like people start to question, you know. I mean, once again, if you just think about the way that you shop on Amazon, it's the same thing. Like, this one's a 4, but there's so many 4.7s out there. Like, why would I consider the 4 unless there's some like huge price difference, right?
Sure.
So I do think like 4.5 and above, but below 4.9 or 5 is probably the best place to be there, Molly. That's just my personal opinion there. And it is backed by GatherUp's study, which I'll try to post in the comments later because it really is fascinating to kind of look and read this survey about how people felt about reviews.
Cool.
Yeah.
Zach said, reputation management is a must. Adam, I was surprised that Google removed it within a week. Yeah, that's super impressive, Adam. I did reply to it, kindly stating the fact in the reply. Not sure if that factored in. May have, I don't know. I don't know how it works.
As long as you really kind of build that case, right? So I generally do it in like a Google document, and I am like, hey, here's kind of your guideline. Here's where I think this is a violation of it. Here's the evidence that it is a violation of it. Here's all the evidence for you to consider, Google. And if you kind of spell all that out there for them, you know, a lot of times those reviews just get taken down.
Interesting.
We've had experiences where, because we worked with divorce attorneys, right? And it was actually pretty common that the spouse.
Oh, I imagine, because you were successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would leave reviews. And so some of my most favorite reviews are actually like 1-star reviews from the spouses, which we can then, or the spouse, I'm just kidding, the spouse of that individual, in which we could reply to and say, yeah, we're sorry that
we're successful at what we do.
That we just wiped the floor with you in court, but you know, that's not really our fault, you know. You should have chosen us before your spouse did, you know. I mean, it could provide a good opportunity to kind of spin that potentially, but it can be frustrating. So anyone who is in that situation where they're dealing with a negative review, I get it, it's frustrating. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll help you kind of build the case to get it removed.
All right, we had one more comment from Renee. Renee, you've corrected me on the business leadership moment too. Thank you for that. When I called the customer with an attitude to understand better, they ended up changing their rating. It's always great learning for me in a way to not let them get away with that crap. Thanks, Renee. Spice and JD.
Thank you, JD. I appreciate the correction there.
All right, so yeah, if you have more questions, hit us. We got 13 minutes left of it, so we got to have to see which ones we can hit here in the next little bit. But if you have questions you want to hit, we'll still do those over our points.
Yep, we'll and I'll kind of combine some of these.
So Adam had one more comment. We had one from one of our clients' ex-girlfriends. Oh, that's funny.
So much fun. I always love because that one's hard because it's like, well, then you have to really kind of build that case in a really awkward way, you know? Because it's not like, oh, well, this is a former employee. here's a screenshot of their, their employment form. This is like, this is one of our employees' ex-girlfriends. This is awkward. Google, can you just get this removed?
Yeah.
But we've had it happen before, and it's worked. But so the next one is...
What number are we on?
Let's see. We are now on 4.
4. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Here
So
we
yeah,
go.
some of these we're going to have to combine, and that's okay because they're honestly pretty darn closely related. The next several are. So the next one is website. So this is obviously super important, right? We need to have a good-looking website. According to a lot of the studies that I've done with different industries, people do call directly from the Google My Business listing, right?
Yeah.
So it's when I was working with the attorneys, I looked across several of personal injury attorneys that were in like Seattle, Toledo, Georgia, Los Angeles, and all of them were like 60% plus of their phone calls were coming directly from the Google My Business listing. So that means only 40% were actually coming to your website to investigate and then call you, right? We don't have any data to support that first 60% even went to the website. We have no data to support that. So that just kind of shows you the importance of having your Google My Business looking awesome, adding photos, all that jazz. But back to the website, for that other 40%, like you need to capitalize on them. And Google does take a lot of ranking factors from the website, even if the person isn't necessarily going to the website, right? So what Google takes into consideration with your website, they do consider like how quickly the website loads. And in May 28th of this year, I guess for the last several years, Google has produced this thing. It's called a Google Page Speed Score. And so they like load your website, and based on kind of certain elements of the website, they kind of give you an arbitrary score out of a scale of 0 to 100, 100 being high. And they were like, oh, this is something that we consider when it comes to ranking. It is important to us, right? We want people to be having a good positive experience when they're coming to your website, and having it load quickly is an important part of that. May 28th of this year, they came out and said, hey, we've mentioned that this is important. It's going to be a whole heck of a lot more important moving forward. And so they really, really encourage you to be doing better on that. So if you're interested in kind of seeing where your website ranks in that, you can go to Google Page Speed Insight Score, pop your website in there and see where it is. And it may not be a big deal now, but it will be in the future. So it is something that needs to be
And what number are
adjusted.
you looking for there? Is it a 90 plus type thing, a 95 plus? What's your, like a 4.8 Google review, what number are we looking for?
Right. So in like 2019, I did like a big survey with my company, Nifty Marketing, and we looked into like the top ranking companies, and their average site speed score at that point was like 36, right? So
Out of 100?
36 out of 100. But since then, Google has come out and said this is going to be really, really important in the years to come. So right now it's pretty low because people haven't paid much attention to it. But Google has literally said this is going to matter in the future.
Okay.
So help me figure it out. So a lot of my clients, some of their websites, that we made kind of back in the day, if they're in like less competitive industries, you can still get away with a 30. That's fine.
Sure.
But I've seen plenty of websites. In fact, I inherited one not long ago that had a 6 out of 100.
Ouch.
Yeah, and we were able to get them up to like a 42 with the way that it was currently built. But a lot of the websites that we're producing, we can get into the 70s, if that's important. And then we also have a different way that we go about it that's significantly more difficult. We can get it up into the 90s pretty easy.
Cool.
So there are options there. But websites, obviously important. Like ranking in Google is really, really good. But also when people come to your website, we want it to look good. Right? We want it to look like, okay, this is a company that we can trust, and having a crappy website is a great way to lose someone who was, at least at one point, interested in working with you, right? And we just need to show these people that your company doesn't necessarily have the personality of beige paint, this is
I love
actually...
that tagline for your website, by the way.
There's a great story behind it, but I'll share that another time. It's important though. But let's see, I've got a...
Molly had a thought. Is it important on your mobile compatibility to, do you have any thoughts on that versus website usability? And then JD will hit your question next.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned the Google Page Speed Insight Score. So Google does take into consideration how quickly the website loads, and they also have a bunch of mobile usability factors that they take into consideration. These are all kind of part of it. I think it's called kind of like the website experience score, website tool score, something of that nature is kind of the all-encompassing one. Having it mobile friendly is huge. of like the top ranking websites that we did that big survey of, like all of them were.
Cool.
So it is certainly possible for someone to rank for like, I don't know, reptile tanks made out of bulletproof glass. Like you could probably rank for that without a mobile-friendly website potentially, because maybe it's not a very competitive market. But if it is competitive, like it's going to be a big difference maker.
Okay, thanks Molly for the question. JD, what websites or tools would you recommend people use outside of Google, or to just help grow their business in general? Maybe some that people don't know of. It's like what, website,
Like a website
builder
platform? Yeah.
platform, I think is the.
So my personal website platform of choice is WordPress. I absolutely love it. It is often.
That's what you build on for your customers?
Yep, 100%. Don't use Wix.
Not a fan.
No, don't use Wix. Right? That is all I can say there. Squarespace is okay. It's not my preferred platform. It's not what I'd recommend. It does kind of have some nice drag and drop functionality, but you can get that on WordPress. So if you're not a coder and you're concerned about that, like reach out to me and we can help you get set up with a website on WordPress that still has the drag and drop functionality that you're looking for. We can help you get something going.
Cool.
So that's good. And then of course, the next one is kind of attached there is content, right? So the actual content that's on your website. So there's ways that you can kind of go about showing up in Google, and part of it is you just have to tell Google on your website what the heck it is that you do, right? So there's a lot of websites that you'll go to and you'll scroll through, and like they'll talk about their mission statement, they'll talk about their values, and you're like, what the heck is this company? And if I don't know as a user, chances are Google doesn't know, right? So like if you go to my website, like it is like Idaho Falls Marketing Agency or marketing company, like pretty clearly, pretty explicitly saying what it is. If your website should be like Idaho Falls Insurance, right? So like just be very explicit in what you're targeting and try to go after, and this is actually kind of the second or the next bullet point that goes with it, is like going after the right keywords. So you just have to tell people exactly what it is that you're doing and use words that they're searching. So for example, once again in the legal realm, premises liability attorney, right? What the heck is that? The thing is, like layman people do not search that way. They search slip and fall attorney, right? So don't use the jargon, because chances are, like if your audience doesn't know that specialized term and that jargon, don't use that.
I have a thought on that. So with Progressive, again, they send us these things saying about what to use for the search, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of insurance agents just think auto insurance, right? But as the general public, are they searching auto insurance? Not usually. It's car insurance near me, right? Because they don't use the word auto. So
right, and even I even said like you should be going after like Idaho Falls Insurance Agency, but that's really incorrect. You should be really probably going after like Idaho Falls Car Insurance, and then have a specific page that you target like these different things, right? Because that's kind of the next one, is that you should probably have a page per location or per area that you're targeting and per service that you offer.
Really?
That would be the best practice, yeah. So if you go Idaho Falls home insurance, Idaho Falls
business
car insurance, Idaho Falls business insurance, like that can be beneficial. And like my recommendation is to be pretty exhaustive in this. Like for some of my attorneys, they do record expungement is what it's called. So like people commit a crime years ago, they want it off their record so it's not as public. There's ways to go about it, but the thing is like every attorney does this, but no one explicitly was going after it in Google. So for one of my attorneys, one of my clients in Toledo, like we made a page that
specifically for it.
Yeah, Toledo expungement lawyer. And it generated so much money because no one was targeting it.
Sweet.
And the thing is that's nice about it is like they can make like $300 to $500 in like 15 minutes.
Nice.
That they can hand off to like the second string of the JV squad at their law firm to do. So it's absolute cake money that everyone is overlooking because they just didn't have a page dedicated to that practice area that they did, right?
Awesome. So be specific. All right, Zach, you had a question. So on WordPress, there are plugins to help with the hacking attacks on your website. Do you put all of your trust in them, or do you worry about it that much? Just want to know your thoughts. And we have 3 minutes, so 3-minute warning here.
Yep, and that's fine. Yeah, so as far as website security, WordPress has some inherent, or had, I really should say, some inherent issues. because it is one of the most widely used platforms on the internet, if there ever is kind of a vulnerability out there, then people find that vulnerability. And that means if there's a vulnerability on this website, then that means
for everybody.
every website that has it might have that, right? So that is a bit of a risk. I use a hosting platform. It's called Kinsta. That's what we host all of our websites on. And they have mitigated 100% of these risks.
Sweet.
Like, they found great ways to be able to protect sites. I've never had a website hacked on Kinsta before, but I've had several clients reach out to me because their website now has porn on it, right? So that does happen, and we've had to like go in.
They just insert it somehow?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's called SQL injection. So basically they can get into your database and they can pop content in there externally. Oh yeah, it's crazy. So there are, and that's not unique to WordPress. That happens on every platform that it happens. So yep, Molly, I'll provide a link to that. Kinsta is the name, Kinsta, like Insta with a K in front of it. And they're fantastic, but they are kind of a premium service. But geez, you know, all it takes is, you know, to have porn on your website once, and you'll realize the importance of the website security.
Sure.
So anyways, kind of have to learn the lesson kind of the hard way sometimes.
All right, so we have 1 minute left. What's your final thoughts? Any?
Yep, the last one is links. So
Okay.
if you're trying to perform in Google, you need to have links from other websites linking to your website. That is super important, but there's 1,000 ways to go about that I will absolutely not be able to cover in 1 minute. But that is important. Also, if you're interested in learning more about this, there is a digital marketing course that's being put on by the SBDC and the Idaho Innovation Center that I am teaching. So if you're interested in that course, we'll provide a link here so that you can come. February.
Okay. So
yep,
soon,
so
next
coming
month.
right up. Next month, it's every Wednesday from like 1:30 to 3. And I believe it's $149. So $150 for 6 hours of instruction, plus if you guys have questions, like I'm all yours. I'm happy to help.
Well, thanks again, Ryan. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this with me. Thanks to Andex Entertainment. They're awesome for having us here. It's so cool that this is actually green behind me, but not on your side.
Looks like a 100% Muppet skin background here.
And I think I might do this in my post tomorrow on Thankful Thursday, but you guys, there have been so many good comments lately in Entrepreneurs of Idaho. There's been so little of the 10% off sale spamming us. So thank you. Thanks for joining us and making our group great.